be here. That's always exciting and nerve-wracking and beautiful at the same time. So my name is Sina, and this workshop is called Love Your Workshop. And basically it's an adaptation of a training program that I'm developing on that helps create highly engaged and motivated workplace where people love their work. Now, work is something that I'm very, very passionate about because it's a huge part of our lives. It's where we spend most of our time, and it's not only what finances our life, but it's what determines a lot of our relationships. Who we hang out with, how we grow as a person, personally and professionally, the skills we learn, how we learn and develop, and also the impact that we're making in the world, because work takes up something that is the most valuable resource in the world, which is our time. So we need to understand how our work is adding to our life and not taking away from it. People should understand how work is supporting them and not, draining them. And there's a lot of talk about work-life balance, right? And the topic of work-life balance, everyone's heard about it, everybody's maybe, thought about it. I feel like it really gives a negative perspective on work. It makes work seem like this thing that is apart from our lives, that it's something that we need to balance with life. It's like this weight that needs to be, that's negative, and we need to balance it with the good of life that is positive. But in fact, work is something that should be integrated with our lives. And instead of looking at work-life balance, we should be looking at work-life alignment. Now, in order for alignment to happen, we need to understand what we're aligning to. So if we don't have clarity about what we want in our lives, what our life looks like, then there's no way for us to understand how to align our work with our life. So why is clarity about work-life alignment so important? Well, that's because the grass is always greener when you can't see the grass that you're standing on. So that means when you don't know what you want in your life and what you're looking for, what your goals are, how you want to grow as a person, then you can't understand how your work is supporting you and how it's adding to your life. And when that happens, then you're attracted and distracted by a lot of different things in your life. And that's exactly what happened to me. So about 5-6 years ago, I read this book called 4-Hour Workweek, and right on the book it says, "Escape the 9 to 5, live anywhere, and join the new rich." How many of you have read that book? All right. So that book inspired something in me, and it inspired something in a lot of other people. So after this book, there was this huge movement of digital nomads. So people who, the whole lifestyle design movement, and it really demonized the 9 to 5. So that means if you were working in a 9 to 5 job, that means you're losing something, and you're always attracted to this like a lifestyle of working virtually and online, and that is exactly what I did. So I quit my job, I started a business. The first one failed. I was so passionate about having this lifestyle, this ideal life that I thought was going to, answer all of my problems, that I started another one. Second one worked. I got my girlfriend to quit her job, and for about 4 or 5 years we traveled and worked online and all of that. And last year I came to the most beautiful place on earth, Revelstoke. And this was on my top bucket list, right? So I mean, ever since I was in my early 20s, I wanted to come out west and spend a season snowboarding and experience that lifestyle, and it was always so important to me. But then nearing the end of the season, something happened. We were planning our next trip, and I was feeling like it had been there a while, but it was this dull sense of an unhappiness. and it was really draining me of my motivation. I was less productive. I wasn't taking on any new clients, and the business suffered, sales suffered. My partner was taking on most of the work, and I wanted to quit. And this is a really scary thing to happen when you're running your own business, because like you are the business. So when you lose motivation in your own business, it's a really scary feeling. And I realized that through several months of study and reflection and learning about myself and researching, like, what is motivation, what is purpose, what is what makes people high performing, I created the I-GGI framework, something that anybody can take and apply it to themselves. And the goal here is really to help people who are working 9 to 5, organizations create this, increase their motivation, fulfillment, satisfaction, happiness, engagement in their work without having to quit, without leaving and starting a business and needing to fly away and go to some exotic destination, work from their laptop, in Bali or something like that. So the agenda today is part one. I'm going to define engagement, and I'm going to define it from a personal level, but also for organizations. What does engagement mean to an organization, and why is it important? Part two, I'm going to outline the framework that I created, and part three is just going over some warnings and next steps. So before we get into that, anybody have any questions? We're good.
What's wrong with Bali?
It's a very, it's not reality, it's not that great. Okay. So, all right, in the most basic terms, so what is engagement? Engagement is the level of emotional commitment and involvement a person has to their work, the organization, and its goals. Now, what's really interesting about emotional commitment is that when somebody is emotionally attached to their work, well, their level of discretionary effort that they're going to put into their work increases dramatically. So what is discretionary effort? So it's basically when people go above and beyond the call of duty. It's the difference between the good employees that just do the minimum and the great and the superstars. And it's this emotional commitment that drives performance. So why do we care about this commitment? Well, because the performance of your organization is dictated and a byproduct of the performance of your people. So this is something that companies know. It's tons of research have gone into this, and the impact of engagement, creating an engaging workforce, and its effect on performance is measured and documented extensively. So, but I want you to think about, for example, in some of these areas, customer satisfaction. When you have somebody who's engaged in their work, when they're willing to do that extra above and beyond, that discretionary effort, well, your customers are going to be more satisfied. How bad of an experience could you have when you walk into a store or you call somewhere and you can tell that people don't care, they're not trying to help you, they're not trying to find a solution for you, and that is a really poor reflection on an organization, and it creates this place where customers don't want to come back, right? You're losing a lot of opportunity there. So, and then employee turnover, retention. This is a huge cost to organizations. So when you lose an employee, you lose someone who you've trained, who has this knowledge, this experience, and losing that person is a huge cost. Not only that, but then finding somebody else and training them and getting up to the level that last person was is a huge cost. And that time it takes where you're trying to find people and training them is another huge cost for organizations. Absenteeism, sick days, when people aren't engaged or motivated in the work, they're going to find any excuse to not go into work. And this is, again, something that's very clear and measurable for organizations. defects, errors, mistakes. Again, this is discretionary effort. When somebody cares about what they're doing, when they have that emotional commitment to their work, they're going to make sure that all of the details are taken care of. They're going to make sure all of the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. And it makes a huge impact on the overall performance, profitability, revenue, sales, growth, market share of an organization. And Gallup, which is a huge market research company in the US, focused on workplace productivity, performance, engagement. They did a study between 2010 and 2016 of 31 million people, and they measured how the impact of employee engagement programs throughout this time and how it impacted productivity, sales, profitability, quality, customer satisfaction. And as you can see, all of these areas increased as these companies invested in employee engagement programs. Now, what's really interesting though, that during that same period, they also, although all these companies are investing in employee engagement programs and performance is increasing, 87% of employees are still not engaged in their work, which is crazy when you think about how much money these companies are investing into engagement, but still the vast majority of people in their work, they're not engaged. So in 2017 in the US alone, $1.5 billion was invested in engagement programs. And the problem here is that companies are confusing happiness and satisfaction with engagement, neither of which actually influence motivation, drive, and productivity in people's work. So before I go to the next slide, I want to ask, so when you think of engaging a workforce, when you think about creating an engagement program and motivating your people, what do you think some strategies are?
Incentives.
Group luncheons, incentives. What kind of incentives? Social events, right?
Involving them in decision making.
Great. Yeah, that's a good one. So you guys are all absolutely right. And the traditional engagement strategies definitely focus on workplace benefits and perks. So free lunches, gym memberships, tuition reimbursements, game rooms, massages, maybe in revenue it'd be like a heli ski trip at the end of your year or something like that. And all of these engagement strategies focus on this like mass blanket engagement where it's like, everybody, here's a free lunch, and hoping that maybe I don't care about a free lunch, right? They don't. The problem with these mass engagement strategies is that they don't look at engagement from an individual perspective. And another thing is that these engagement strategies are very short-term and short-lived. So, for example, that free lunch might be great for making me happier and more engaged week 1 or week 2, but then week 3 and 4 it becomes this expectation, and that bonus becomes an expectation. And all of these things that you're doing, and the new people that you bring in, they're coming in expecting that game room. They're coming in expecting that free lunch every Friday. And again, while it's helping to improve general happiness and satisfaction, it doesn't address the problem of engagement. Another really interesting fact is that, how engagement is currently measured. So like engagement, when a company looks at engagement, they're so focused on the organization and how the person relates to the organization. And they'll ask questions like, what's your satisfaction? Are you looking for another job? How would you rate our company as a place to work? And are you proud of our company? Again, all of which are important metrics and indicators to track, but they don't look at engagement from the individual's perspective. And the simple fact is that engagement is an inside job. Engagement, motivation, drive, all of these things happen intrinsically within people. And every person has a different reason and different motivation why they come to work. And companies need to stop using these mass engagement strategies and start helping people identify, get clarity, again, clarity about what it is that motivates them, and help people create alignment with their work. So now we're at the I-GGI hypothesis, and this is where I'm going to talk about the I-GGI framework, but do you guys have any questions up till now? Cool, okay. So part 2, the I-GGI hypothesis. So the hypothesis that I've created is how well we do what we do is determined by the level of clarity that we have about how what we do is in alignment with why we do it, so our goals, growth, and impact objectives, and the circle of influence that we have either inherited, developed, or chosen in our lives. So I'll break this down very high level for all of you, and going through it. So this is kind of like the framework. It's like an atom, and basically sort of this centerpiece, the impact, goals, and growth. We talk a lot about purpose, and I have a real problem with the word purpose because I struggled with finding my purpose for so long, because I was like, it has this connotation where purpose is this one thing. Purpose is a singular thing that defines you, and that's not true. Your purpose is a combination of things, and when you understand it, it really opens your eyes. Like let's say you want to be an actor, and you say, my purpose is to be an actor, right? Well, your purpose is not to be an actor necessarily. It's the impact that you're going to make as an actor and how you're going to affect the people around you. It's how being an actor is going to help you accomplish your goals that are meaningful and important in your life. It's how being an actor is going to help you grow and develop as a person, personally and professionally. And so this sort of inner circle, these three combining circles, is what I would define as your why, your purpose, the around that is your circle of influence, right? So we are influenced by our environment, the people, where we're raised, how we were brought up, the language we speak, where we live, the information we consume. All of these things influence us, and they either support us in our goals, growth, and impact objectives, or they take away from it. So understanding what your influences are around what you surround yourself with is, again, really important to determine how you do what you do, right? So I'm going to break this down a little bit further. So step 1 is gaining clarity, right? So clarity about what are your goals. Goals are these finite things in our lives, like, I want to live in Revelstoke, right? What kind of car you want to drive? Where do you want to go travel? What kind of, skis you want to have. These are goals that you accomplish. They're like checklists. And understanding why they're meaningful and important, and rating them. Growth. How do you want to grow as a person? What do you want to learn? What kind of skills do you want to develop? Personally and professionally, understanding how you want to grow is extremely important. And impact. What kind of impact? What kind of contribution do you want to make to the world? To your family, your community, your town, the city, whatever it is. How do you want to give back? How's the time that you're spending giving back to something other than yourself? Because that understanding of the impact of your impact is an immensely powerful emotional connection. So just like as an example, there's a story about how JFK walks into the International Space Station, and it's like midnight or something like that, and he sees this janitor mopping the floor, and he walks up to the janitor and he says, "What are you doing?" And he says, "I'm helping put a man on the moon." And that understanding of the impact is so powerful. Like he's just mopping the floor, right? But he understands how what he's doing, his actions, the work, his time is impacting something greater and meaningful to him. So having clarity about that is step 1. Step 2, defining influence. So what are your influences, and how are they affecting your goals, growth, and impact objectives, right? So when you look at your who we are, again, is defined by, or for a large portion, by what we're influenced by. Again, our surroundings, the information we consume, the people we hang out with, all of these things either support our goals or take away from it. So it's really important to identify and break down your influences. What are the things that are influencing you, and understand how, if they are supporting you, how can you get more of that? And if they are not supporting you, then how can you get rid of it, right? So, for example, I don't watch news because, I'm not someone who cares about being always up to date with current affairs and all that stuff. And I feel like news is something that it's very negative, and it hurts me. So I don't watch news. And because for me to grow as a person, I don't see that as a positive influence. So I cut it out. Same thing with social media and your friends and the people who you hang out with and what you do. All of these things, you need to understand how it's supporting your goals, growth, and impact that you want to make. And step 3, and this is where alignment happens. So now that you have clarity, now that you understand what it is you want and what you're aligning to, now you can actually look at your work and evaluate it. Now you can look at your work and say, okay, my work is accomplishing all of these super important goals for myself. It's helping me grow in a meaningful way, and it's helping me make this impact. And now, as an organization, helping people gain this clarity, now you can also help them further develop that alignment. So when people understand what it is they want, now you can, let's say Sally wants to be a painter, right? She's an accountant, but she wants to be a painter. If you can help Sally and have this conversation with Sally and identify that she wants to be a painter, well, instead of giving Sally a free lunch, maybe you'll give Sally a painting kit or a painting training program, something that makes that allows her to understand how her work is supporting her in an individual way, in a way that's actually meaningful, in a way that she actually cares about, right? So in summary, like the I-GGI assessment is, you understand, identify what is it, what are your influences, what are your goals, growth, and impact objectives, and then prioritizing them by what are your non-negotiables in terms of goals, and why are they meaningful. So like if you want the latest car, why is it important and meaningful for you, and creating like a priority list of all of these things. And then finally, creating that alignment. So how is your work currently supporting you, and how can it further support you in what's important and meaningful in your life? So that's the I-GGI framework. Do you guys have any questions? Cool. Okay. So
I have a question.
Yeah, sure.
How long did it take you to refine that? Like that's probably the best I've seen yet to date. Like that's really good.
Yes. Yes. Can I give you a high five? I don't know. It's still I still feel like there's a lot of refinement to be done, but it was really kind of from a pain point of my own pain point, right? It's like, why aren't I happy, right? Mm-hmm. I'm like, I created this business around this life that I thought I wanted, and like I'm not happy, and it seems so selfish and sad. It's like, what's wrong with you? And I was just researching, and people talking about purpose and passion. I'm like, this is not right. Like, I'm like, I don't have this single thing to define me. And I'm like, there's all these things. So that's I guess how it developed. But yeah. So okay, anybody else? Cool. Part 3, warning's the next step. Warning. Work always sucks sometimes. So it's about, like, there's no such thing as perfect work. And what's important is to understand how your work is aligning to, again, the most important things in your life. So non-negotiables, like what are those non-negotiables in your goals that you want your work to align with, your growth and the impact you want to make, and then creating that priority list. And those lower level stuff, sure, maybe it's not, your work isn't aligning with those, but they're not as important. And yeah, it sucks sometimes. It's a little thing, but it's less important when you understand like how it's aligned with the more important things. Then you're not gonna worry about the smaller sucky parts, and you're gonna embrace the suck, right? Okay, warning, toxicity is an engagement killer. And this is another area that I'm working on a training program for, and it's addressing toxicity. And how do you create a culture where people feel not only supported, but also emotionally and psychologically safe, right? When you have toxicity, when you have this work environment where people are disrespected, where there's gossip, where people just don't feel safe in their workplace, there's no trust, well, no amount of clarity is going to create an engaged workplace. And because that negative circle of influence is just going to be killing engagement. So toxicity in the workplace is something that needs to be addressed. Again, it's a cultural thing within the organization that needs to be addressed top down, and in order for engagement and a high performing workplace to exist. So in terms of next steps, inspired leaders inspire others. So this is, again, where I think it's so important for engagement to start top down. It's something that trickles from the head to the senior managers, middle managers, and then frontline employees, staff. When the owner of the business or the managers, the people that are interacting with your people are not motivated, when they're not engaged, when they're not happy, when they don't understand what their work means and how what they're doing every day is in alignment with the things that are meaningful and important in their lives, well, they're not going to be able to inspire other people. A rising tide raises all ships, and this is what leaders are. They're people who raise all ships, and in order for an organization to increase its overall engagement, the leaders need to also be coached and understand, have that clarity, and have that alignment in the work that they're doing. Training coaches, not managers. So management is one of those things, when you're working with people, you look at managing human resources, right? But the problem is, it's a very traditional sense is your manager is looking at humans as resources. They're cogs that you're putting in like spreadsheets and assigning. And the fact is, people are dynamic, people are unique, and they have thoughts and they have feelings, and as organizations become more complex and dynamic and cross pollinating in multiple ways, managers need to have that ability to connect with people, their people that they're managing on a one-on-one and individual level. Managers are the people that are going to have the eyes and ears of the organization and understand that Sally is interested in painting, and create those opportunities for people to grow and develop in those individual ways, and not just some sort of mass engagement strategies. And last, organizations should do more alignment reviews as opposed to performance reviews. So a performance review focuses on, okay, here's how we evaluated your performance, and here's how we think you can do better, and that sort of discussion. Whereas an alignment review, and again, it's focused on the organization. It's like, how are you performing with the organization? Now, an alignment review is going to focus more on the individual. So how are you as an individual, like, how have your goals changed? How is your growth objectives and the impact? And how is your work supporting that right now, and how can we further that? So it's, again, going back to the real drivers of performance, because when people feel supported, when people feel aligned, and they have clarity, it's, again, because people grow, they change. You need to have these alignment reviews on a regular basis to sort of like check-ins, right? It's like, oh, have your goals changed? Have you, do you want to grow differently? Do you want to, like, all these things evolve, and having these periodic reviews where you're having these conversations, reconfirming that clarity, reconfirming that emotional commitment to their work, and giving them like light, and this is how we, we're going to, your work is going to further help you align and grow and develop, is much more powerful in improving performance than a performance review. So that's about it. Thanks for listening. Questions?
Comments?
Yeah.
What in the organization, who is generally the best person to do that performance review? Leadership, manager. Sorry, not performance review, but yeah, alignment review.
I think it depends a lot on the organization. You have when you have multiple levels of management. I think every, it should be just like one step up. It wouldn't be like, CEO going in and interviewing the frontline staff, because they don't have that interaction. It's whoever's having that interaction should be doing that review, because that's where the conversations happen. That's where you're learning and you're building those relationships. And when that review is going to be a lot more meaningful, because now you're talking to someone you trust, you've had, they know you. So I think it's where it depends on the organization and how, how it's interacting, how people interact.
How the relationships work.
Yeah.
Second question.
Sure. I like it.
What does that look like for a large organization? So let's say you're the CEO. Is there a line in which you say, okay, we're not going to really be too concerned about the alignment of every single one of our housekeepers and ski staff? Like at what point in a larger company do you try to do that as much as you can for anyone?
Yeah, I think it's so you're. The well runs deep, especially with larger organizations, and I think the deeper you go, the more opportunities you're going to find. Even though yes, it's more work. That house cleaner is going to do their work better because they're more engaged, and when they pass somebody in the hallway, they're going to be friendlier, and it's the details. Like this is the problem with like big bureaucratic systems. They focus on high level numbers and they forget the details, and the opportunity is really in the details. And it's at the end of the day, it's a decision that every organization needs to make for themselves. But you can divide it by departments and divisions and teams. So like you have your big house cleaning team, but then within you have different sort of teams. So like team one is this building, and so they interact with this manager, and that manager deals with their manager, who should be doing training with that manager. So it's like this kind of matrix where everybody's getting coached and trained by somebody else, right? So if that makes sense. Anybody else?
Keep going.
Cool.
Okay, and this is a good opportunity for you. This is a you plug.
I like you plugs.
Is part of your program then working with managers, leaders, department heads, organizations to come up with programs to train them on alignment,
right?
How to get that alignment with their staff. Is that your focus?
Yes, that's definitely. Do you want me to expand on that? Yes. Oh, it's a you plug.
This is a sales pitch opportunity.
Oh yes. Well.
Yeah.
I'm so happy that you asked. Yes,
She
exactly.
was planted.
No, so, I mean,
This sounds like
She was planted.
fantastic.
I'll pay you $20.
Buy your lunch. You want lunch?
So like I was saying, I think this is something that really, it's a cultural thing, but it's also something that needs to start from the top level management. So I think it's something where when the owner of that business feels inspired, when they've gotten coached, then they understand, they see that. It's like, wow, you know what, you're right, it totally, it does motivate me. It's having that clarity really does, and then creating those training programs where, again, you're turning your managers into coaches and trickling that down throughout the organization. But again, I really think it starts as a top level thing where the owner themselves needs to have that clarity, and then, you know, endow that clarity onto everybody else as a gift.
So are you saying that if we were interested in bringing you into an organization, but we weren't the owner, that probably wouldn't work so well, but that if we were the owner of the business, then you would be more...
Well, I mean, if you wanted to bring me into a company that you don't own, I mean, if you have that
no,
decision,
like to present
yes.
it to the owner and then to see if they were interested or not, is what I'm saying.
Oh,
but if
for
they
sure.
weren't as inspired as the frontline employees, for example,
Definitely.
it probably wouldn't be effective, is like what I'm understanding.
Definitely. I mean, again, I think there every case is unique, and it's really about understanding the dynamic of that organization. So, like, part of the before the training program, I have this kind of evaluation process that I've sort of set up to understand, like, again, what is that dynamic, and really focusing on the culture, and another big part, which is toxicity. So how does that exist? Because, again, no amount of training, no amount of coaching is going to help create an engaging workforce if people don't feel safe and they don't trust the people around them. And but to answer your question very directly, yes, if you want to bring me into and introduce me to your boss, yes, definitely. Happy to have that conversation. Yeah.
Do you see a lot of pushback from bosses where you're opening up like their staff to start thinking about other options, or like it's
a great question.
like you're kind of letting them then think of that there are other options, or
Yeah, absolutely. So this is actually a great question, and something I've done a lot of research on. So yes, that is a risk. However, so for example, Netflix has this policy in their company. If you as an employee are not engaged and you don't love your work, we want you to leave, and we want you to feel comfortable to tell us that this is not right for you. Because I think companies need to understand that having that employee there that is in complete misalignment with their job, they shouldn't be there, and it's a risk having them there. And people, and this is actually very true if you, like, again, from the research on toxicity, it's when people feel unhappy in their work and they feel misaligned, they are usually the bad apples. They're going to poison everybody else. So it's important to get these people out. You don't want someone who doesn't care about their job dealing with your customers, or working on something that can potentially cause errors and mistakes and impact your organization. So I think with it's definitely something that could happen, but I think the bigger opportunity is all those people who, like, they'll get a greater sense of attachment to their job. All those people that have never really thought about what their job meant to them and how it's supporting them, they'll create, again, a greater emotional commitment to their work. And I think it's like we have like this problem as people. We're always looking for more and trying to like get more, and when we don't even realize like what we have, and we're not grateful for it because we're always looking out, we're always looking at the greener grass when the grass under us is pretty freaking green, you know what I mean? And I think that's where that's where the clarity piece comes in. It's like, you know, people will have more gratitude in their work when they know what their work is giving to them. So, yeah. Yes.
If kind of a question back to your original idea of like math programs to kind of engage in against individual program or
Yep.
to kind of
Yeah.
where does commission and tipping kind of fall into that?
Commission and tipping.
Yeah.
Well, tipping is the consumer, right?
Mhm.
So
But
commission
in
would
terms
be
of incentivizing the
Incentive,
employee
yeah,
to
cash
engage.
incentives, definitely. I've worked sales jobs before, and you know, pure commission jobs. It's a tricky thing because money is, again, it's one of those things. It's just like a free lunch. It'll boost people's satisfaction and maybe make them work harder in the short term, but it's not a long-term thing because it doesn't. If they don't understand what that money means to them and how, you know, it's actually adding to the things that are important, like money's just a tool, right? A tool that allows you to do what you want, but when you don't know what you want, you don't know how to use that tool. And, you know, the definition of unhappiness is chasing something that you don't know, like, really hard. It's like, there's a quote. It's something around that. Like, that's what unhappiness is. Like just constantly chasing something without knowing why you're chasing it, right? And that's, money can be a really great incentive tool, but without the clarity piece or why people are using, like, what it means to them, I don't think it's any better than a free lunch. Yeah. Anybody else?
I guess just from a non-owner perspective, but you know, as an organization such as the Chamber, for example, and the Visitor Center, we hear from visitors, travelers, community members, whether their input from a business is like, oh, they seem really engaged, great, I recommend them, or that was the worst shopping, dining, etc. experience because of the staff.
Right.
So how do we as an organization kind of recommend, you know, we're doing our due diligence by approaching the owner and saying, hey, do you know that this is the feedback we've got, just so you're aware of it. I'm certainly not going to tell you what to do with your organization, but there's a way to approach people to kind of, you know, shift their perception of this, or just find the value in realizing, you know, your workers aren't engaged, or, you know, it can come to many things besides just engagement, but how would you approach them?
So I think it's a sensitive topic.
Yeah.
So I think, I mean, those statistics and that sort of feedback is extremely valuable and eye-opening when an owner hears that, you know, their customers are not happy and they're getting bad reviews and all that. It's definitely something. Now, I think the biggest challenge is that people just don't have the training or the skills to do these things. So, like, as an owner, you need to invest in yourself, and this is again why I'm saying it starts top down. You as an owner need to develop personal development, coaching, training, where you're growing your skills, your level of communication. How do you communicate with your staff? Your level of empathy, understanding, all of these things. They need to be ready to invest in themselves and understand that this is for the good of their organization. That's an incentive for them. But at the end of the day, this is not for everyone, right? Like some people just they don't want to listen. And it's definitely more progressive organizations who are going to embody this type of training and these type of coaching programs and this type of culture, right? Some organizations are just going to stay, you know, in whatever century they're in, and that's how they're going to operate. And if you can't get the owner and decision makers in the organization to buy into this, it's almost impossible to make change. So you really, this is why I'm saying it really needs to start from the top down, and trickle throughout the organization. But yeah, there's definitely you need to convince them. So you can use those sort of statistics and research and feedback that you've gotten from the customers and say, okay, but look, you're just a really bad boss. you don't know what you're doing. You don't know how to speak to people. Like, you can't yell at people. Like, obviously a little bit more, candor in your approach, but yeah, definitely. Yeah.
It seems like kind of the two pillars of the framework are the understanding and engagement of like a manager, an owner, or someone in the higher up, but also if the employees don't understand on a personal level what they want, then the framework would fall apart.
Of course.
So what tools do you offer to employees or those lower level people that are running around to identify those values, because that's kind of what people search for their entire life.
Totally, exactly. And you know what? I mean, if I could, I would start with the people, right? But it's the same tools.
Yeah.
It's the same conversation. It's the same level of self-reflection and introspection that you need to do as an owner as you would do as a frontline staff, right? Now, the difference is that conversation might happen with your manager, right? So the difference is that now your manager needs to understand and be trained to, and understand why it's important, and be trained to have those conversations, to create that clarity and help people work through it and understand what to do with that information. So now, again, Sally wants to be a painter, and now I know that, so what do I do with it? So creating those sort of systems where, again, moving away from the mass engagement and more individual and personalized strategies. Did you have a question? I just see you talking in the back. Yeah, would you like to share with the class what you're saying? Okay, that's my girlfriend.
Yeah, I heard the presentation.
So, yeah. Anybody else?
Are there things that you've done the process and gone into businesses? What are the employees saying? Like, what are the top 5, top 10 things they're saying they want for clarity or to improve their engagement? Is it?
I would love to tell you that. I don't know, because I haven't actually done this with an organization yet. This is like a framework I've been building, and then this is actually one of my first presentations, presenting it to people. And if anybody wants like a test run with me, like, I'd love to do that. That would be a lot of fun, and then I could call you and tell you the answer. But I don't know. Sorry, the question was, what are the top 5 things that people are?
Like, say, yeah, people are saying, well, I want to be listened to. I want to be taken seriously. I want to play basketball at lunch. Like, what are the top things that people want for clarity?
So if you're looking at sort of the old traditional kind of workplace engagement surveys, which would never kind of ask that sort of I want to play basketball or any kind of questions, but definitely respected. They want to be heard. They want to be more involved. These are all things that people want to feel within an organization. Like, but at the same time, this is something that it doesn't. It's definitely important, but it's still missing that piece of the individual. It's like, again, it's you and the organization. It's like, I want to be listened to by the organization. I want to feel like I'm contributing to something. And that, again, very, very, very important. But then it still doesn't talk or look into that the individual, like you as a person. Like, what do you want in your life? And life, because work is it's a part of life, and it needs to be integrated with your life. But it's that conversation of what people want in their life and what it doesn't happen, and it hasn't happened, and I think it needs to happen. So I'll call you when I know when it happens.
Basketball's on the list.
Yeah, actually basketball. Yeah. Yeah.
Just for curiosity's sake, what do you say to environments that, I guess, breed toxicity as a performance enhancer? So like, for example, like I went to school in Calgary, and so the oil and gas industry breeds that toxicity for competition.
Yeah.
Companies like Amazon that are okay with company burnout at an early age because they feel that is when someone is high functioning, they'll work hard for a few years and then they'll bail and go and do something else. So it's a completely different model.
Totally.
So I guess you don't get that longevity of employment, but you have high performance still.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely. It's again, it's a cultural shift, and it really depends on the culture of the organization and then how progressive that organization wants to be in making that change. There's toxic environments and toxic work relationships and bosses, like they're everywhere. I think another element of this is people don't have the self-awareness of how their actions are actually toxic. Like they feel like they're actually doing something good, and with the toxicity training that I'm working on, it's really kind of identifying, how is toxicity actually hurting performance. Because so on LinkedIn I started this hashtag called Workplace Detox, and you can just you see the stories of people and just these cases and all of the research done around how toxicity is impacting performance. And honestly, like, it's just about making people listen. Like, just look at this. Like, it's there. It's all there. The research is there. The history is there. Like, it's there. You just have to open your eyes, listen to it, and want to make that change in your company culture and the way you operate. Yeah, it's definitely a tough one. Definitely a tough one. Yeah. Yay! So if anyone wants to contact me to introduce me to their boss or whatever, thank you, sir. This is my email. And if you ever just want to talk and talk about your goals, your growth, the impact you want to make, like I just love these kinds of conversations. It's always fun. So yeah, don't hesitate to reach out.
Yeah, thank you all for coming. And again, if you feel you have anything to offer for these seminars, let me know. It's so great to have such a big crowd out for this. Just one last comment. You're just in terms of a personal self, how you were saying you felt disengaged at this, what you perceived as a dream job for you. Yeah. I think a lot of us feel that at lots of times, and it's like you just can't figure out why you're not happy.
Right.
So I still think your framework applies to us all on an individual level, whether it's coming from our boss.
Yes.
Sit down every couple of months, and I mean, my husband and I did that when we decided to move here. It's like we have all these great things, but why are we unhappy? Why do we want to make a change? And it's something that we look at again every year. It's like our dream board, vision board, whatever, just thoughts, and we make sure we have that conversation. Exactly. And it's like, well, we wanted to live in Revelstoke, so it's like, awesome. Right. If I have to do, a job that might not engage me, I'm still living in Revelstoke, and that was my goal at the time.
Non-negotiable.
So,
exactly. And the only thing I'll add to that is that we often focus on our goals. So this is kind of like a danger when we're doing this sort of self-reflection. Is we focus on the things that will give us that sort of instant gratification. Living in Revelstoke, again, it's a big decision, but understanding our growth also, like how do you want to grow as a person? Like who do you want to be? How do you want people to look at you and define you? And then understanding your impact, the contribution that you want to make to someone other than yourself is so powerful, because again, like this whole thing, my business that I started, it was all based on a goal. Like I wanted to travel and work virtually and whatever, and that was the goal. And goals, like you see it with like superstars, and when they achieve their goal and they're the best in the business, and they've done everything and every goal is checked off, and they're unhappy and they're depressed, and suicide rates are huge, and you're like, how could you be so unhappy? Well, because goals, again, they're finite, and once you check them off, it's over and done with. So you need to understand what is more to this, right? What is the impact? How do you want to continue to grow? Because that will keep you motivated and moving forward, because once that goal is checked off, you still have something to work towards, and that's what motivates us. It's that future, right? We need to keep moving. So yeah, but definitely 100%, it's a framework that everybody just take on and do that self-reflection and apply.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks a lot, guys. I
Thanks,
really
guys.
appreciate your time. Thank you.